Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Midweek Sparring. I'm Dan Doherty alongside Jake Creer, and we got plenty of news to talk about. Also looking ahead to this weekend's card, UFC Portland. That was a terrible introduction. How you doing, Jake?
I'm doing well. We better pick it up from there. We can only go up,
Yes.
right?
Yep. This is only what I do for a living. So, all right. Well, plenty of big news. Biggest news, of course, UFC 205 has been made official pretty much by that press conference. And what a great press conference it was, announcing Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Michael Johnson, making Tyron Woodley versus Stephen Thompson official, Eddie Alvarez versus Conor McGregor in the main event, Miesha Tate versus Raquel Pennington, and all the antics that went on that press conference. It was a good time. On Wednesday, was that press conference?
Monday,
Tuesday.
I think.
Monday.
Tuesday. I don't know.
Tuesday.
It was earlier this week.
Something.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
It was Tuesday.
All right. Yeah, but great time there. So looking forward to that card. Definitely got me hyped up.
Yeah, lots of big fights were announced. The one that you didn't even mention was your favorite one, as you were saying last week, is the battle of the Polish ladies.
Yes.
The strawweight title fight, Joanna Jędrzejczyk and Karolina Kowalkiewicz, the autocorrect nightmare. And so that one was announced as well. And of course, like I predicted, it was thrown under the rug and it made it look like it wasn't going to happen. But we got that main event of Conor McGregor and Eddie Alvarez, and we got McGregor repping right here, right now.
Nice. The fight kit.
You bet.
Yep. People do buy those. But yeah, definitely Kowalkiewicz versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk. That's definitely my favorite fight of the card. Absolutely. It's the third fight on the main card, not the co-main event. I think it should be the co-main event personally, but that's just me. She's totally a star, and you could tell by the way she got the applause when her name was mentioned when the reporter asked that first question. So
yeah, that was one of the cool things of that press conference was seeing, who the crowd was backing. We talked about how Tyron Woodley kind of embraced the heel.
Uh-huh.
He was asking them to get their boos out, and but then you could see who the fan favorites were, and Joanna was definitely one who emerged for that. Obviously, Chris Weidman with the New York background, Frankie Edgar as well. There's a lot to take away from that, and we could do a full podcast just talking about that. But we got to look ahead too, because unfortunately, probably not all of those fights will still be intact by the time.
Don't you dare!
By the time it comes around, I could go the other route, and then that would jinx it just as much. So that's just the fight business. That's how it goes, and hopefully, we don't have a case of UFC 200 where they're scrambling last minute to, make something out of it.
And man, I got so excited when he announced that Khabib versus Michael Johnson was happening, because I was like, oh my God, this card is getting better. What?
Right. And it was so nonchalant too. He's like, oh yeah, I forgot too. Classic.
The
Dana
best
White.
lightweight in the world is going to be on this card. So cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that one.
Did you catch the little video promo they showed at the beginning?
Only like the last bit of it, because I turned it on a little late. Yeah.
Because I was watching it, but I think I was making dinner at the same time, so I was kind of distracted. But I'm pretty sure they showed Khabib in that video, but it was really brief, and I'm not positive on that. So I didn't. When I rewatched the press conference on Fight Pass, they didn't show that video. They just went straight into the curtain being raised, which was one of the coolest moments ever, I would say too, as far as press conferences go. You could feel the crowd just really getting into it. They'd waited for probably multiple hours. I mean, they're there super early, and obviously in typical Conor McGregor press conference fashion, it was delayed.
A delayed start.
So yeah, it was very cool, and I think they did a nice job with it.
And my favorite part, or everyone's favorite part, really was when the whole Jeremy Stevens situation.
Oh my gosh, that was hilarious.
I feel so bad for him now, because that's going to follow him for the rest of his life.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was just epic. Yeah, Conor made him eat his words in a hurry. And the thing is, like, I've seen so many people on social media just saying literally how funny McGregor is. I think Dwayne Finley was saying today how he's literally one of the funniest fighters on the planet, and besides like the trash talk, he definitely is he's got, obviously that was some trash talk in it as well, but he's a funny dude. It's good stuff.
Definitely good comedic timing there too. Yeah,
it was. I mean, he was on Jimmy Kimmel. It was all over the place. I saw it on ESPN yesterday too. So the press is not to shy away from McGregor's antics.
Yeah, biggest UFC event of all time. They outdid themselves with this one. So, I mean, you can really make 2 stacked main cards with this whole card. It's crazy.
And you look at that press conference too. I don't think Kelvin Gastelum got a question asked. Neither did Yoel Romero.
Or Jeremy Stevens, right?
Yeah, not really. Yeah. So it's like the fact that those guys were kind of overshadowed, not to mention Rashad Evans, former champion, New York, has New York ties, and he wasn't even there, and he's fighting. Obviously, he's on the back end of his career, and Tim Kennedy hasn't fought in forever, and that's the fight we got there. But it's an awesome card, even like one that nobody will even talk about until the fight actually happens. But Bilal Muhammad and Lyman,
I was just about to mention that. Yeah,
that fight is sick.
That's awesome. I love it. Bilal's such an awesome guy, and yeah, Lyman Good. I forgot he was in the UFC, and then they announced that fight. Oh, okay, he's back.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
he was injured for a while. So
yes, yep, and he had just an awesome UFC debut, and he's a former Bellator guy, correct?
Bellator champ. He was.
Yes, exactly. So, that's kind of the theme lately. We got one Bellator, former big Bellator name that we'll highlight here on this week's card, and Volkov signed with the UFC today too, and his first fight was announced. The former heavyweight champ for Bellator. So,
are you sure it's Vinikov is the champ for
Bellator?
Volkov,
the former champ.
Was Volkov a champ at Bellator?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Because that's what all the articles said today. Former Bellator champion. So.
Okay, that's before my time then.
But yeah, so definitely another big name converting from Bellator to the UFC.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, something we forgot to talk about last week is the Bellator vice versa UFC over to Bellator. How do we forget Uncle P or Uncle Chael P? We didn't get to mention that last week.
And I was hoping that the Chael versus Wanderlei fight would happen, but now Wanderlei's fighting Mirko Krokop. I don't know if you caught any of Rizin,
Rizin, yeah.
That was fun. I watched some of that because it was going on while I was recording the Sunday podcast, so I was watching it while it was going on. And man, when Wanderlei and Mirko Krokop got into the same ring, I got way too excited for those guys. Oh my God, they're gonna fight! It's awesome.
It's kind of getting the new description of being like the new Pride. So I can see how a lot of the hardcore fans are drawn to it. And I didn't catch any of those fights, but there were some that were certainly intriguing.
Yeah, Darren Cruikshank looked awesome, former UFC guy. Mirko Krokop showed some jiu-jitsu, which is cool. Kron Gracie in the main event got a chokeout. And Jason Payne, one of our writers at Cage, just posted an article about how Rizin is the new Pride and all of his reasoning. So that's the thing.
How did Gabby Garcia do? I didn't see her results.
Crushed. She crushed.
She's a beast.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
Humans shouldn't look like that. That's for sure.
Yeah,
there's a lot of meat.
She's good.
Yeah, definitely skilled for her size. So, but back to UFC 205. I love the Pennington Tate fight. I love the Kowalkiewicz Jacek fight. What an awesome card. And was Alvarez? That was the first time Alvarez and McGregor. Did they announce that before, or was it revealed at the press conference?
It was announced the night before. It was kind of crazy. I think I actually had gone to bed, but it was around 11 or 12 Central Time. And
that's right, Schiller did. Okay,
and it was kind of your typical McGregor crazy fashion again with the fight announcement. Sounds like Khabib was kind of played a little bit. You either visibly upset on social media.
Yep.
So it was kind of a weird way to get there, but I think it's the best fight as far as bringing in the fans, and it's going to draw a lot of attention.
Mm-hmm. And I'm glad Khabib is on the card against a top lightweight like Michael Johnson, because all the detractors against him about not getting the title shot are saying like he hasn't fought anyone in 2 years. So, but right. I personally think he's the best lightweight in the world, so he can prove that against Michael Johnson, silence all the guys that are saying he hasn't fought anybody, and then get that title shot that he has deserved for a while. So
exactly, and I can see both sides of that coin. I agree. I think he is the best, if not, second or third. But you said it yourself, he hasn't had the opportunities to prove it, whether it was injuries or fights falling through. He hasn't beat anyone, top level for a while. And this is a great opportunity. Michael Johnson's been on a roll, obviously, with not really on a roll, but
he got back on track.
He got back on track in a quick hurry there with that knockout. So that's an awesome fight, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, he beat Dos Anjos, and then he was gonna fight Tony Ferguson, and that fell out at like the last minute because of his lungs, or Tony Ferguson's lungs, and then he had to fight Darrell Horcher instead. So, man, it's not like Khabib isn't trying to fight anybody. So,
right. Yeah, I mean, he'll be the first to tell you that he wants to fight anybody and everybody. So it's going to be great to hopefully have him back, and hopefully he can stay healthy. That's all I got to say.
And I just love the matchup between Jędrzejczyk and Kowalkiewicz. They have similar output, as in they just keep on striking over they can do it for forever, it seems. But range, Kowalkiewicz does it from the inside. Who's gonna be able to dominate more in their realm? Who's gonna be able to get the fight where they want it to be, in your opinion?
Right. Well, and it's gonna be interesting to see what changes Joanna makes, because of she certainly got exposed in that last fight with Gadeha. I mean, she was on the ropes there for quite a few rounds, and then she just turned it up. Rounds like 3 through 5, she really, you saw her cardio. Kowalkiewicz hasn't. I mean, she looked great against Holly Holm, but other than that, she's.
You got your Russians mixed up. Hold on.
What's that?
You got your Russians mixed up. It seems Kowalkiewicz fought Rose Namajunas.
Yes. Sorry, Namajunas, okay. not Holm.
Yeah.
Shevchenko it was. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, but she looked good in that fight. So I was thinking Shevchenko. Yes, Kowalkiewicz looked very good in that fight. Certainly earned the title shot. But yeah, I don't know. I think my gut says Joanna will win. She beat her, back in their amateur, was it Muay Thai fights that they fought?
It was by submission. She beat her by rear naked choke.
Okay. So yeah, I'm a huge Joanna fan. So right now it's going to be a lot to change my mind. She's training at American Top Team now, I see. So
that's awesome.
So I think that's going to help her, leaps and bounds even more to get around, a great camp and a lot of good fighters.
Mm-hmm. And where I think we don't see Joanna's clinch striking that often. She tends to get in a range where she can dominate from a distance, and kind of where the opponent can't establish their range. So the only way to defeat that is where we see Claudia Gadelha come in and with her takedowns and stuff. But Kowalkiewicz doesn't do takedowns. She does the clinch, where she excels. Like, her knees against Namajunas were just out of this world.
Right.
And that's what won her the fight, basically. And same thing against Heather Jo Clark. Just whenever they got in close, it was just combination. So I'm really interested to see how their activities will clash. And man, I'm really looking forward to it. But I do think Joanna will outlast Kowalkiewicz. Her cardio is good, Kowalkiewicz, but we haven't seen her in a 25-minute fight like we have with Jędrzejczyk, of course.
Right.
But man, I love it. The speed will be amazing, and that's high level MMA, and you don't see that often with women's MMA. So it's going to be a really fun fight.
Yeah, and we already got some bad blood between them too, so that is a nice little fuel to the fire too.
Mm-hmm. And let's see, other fight announcements you want to look ahead to?
No, the one thing that we also forgot to mention last week is huge as far as up and coming MMA goes. We'll get to my prospect to watch, and he has to do with this. But the merger of Legacy Fighting Championship and RFA that got announced a little over a week ago.
Yeah.
That their new company is going to be Legacy Fighting Alliance. Mick Maynard, the former president of Legacy, moving up to take Joe Silva's spot, kind of. Sean Shelby moving up the ranks. And then Ed Soros is going to, kind of take over the reins for this new LFA. And they're already talking about, kind of unifying their championships, having the champions fight each other right away in 2017. And I think that's huge. It's going to be awesome as far as, that they're claiming to be the number 3 promotion in the world. I don't think that's too far off, to be honest. They're World Series of Fighting or one championship. They have some good fights here and there. Rizen's kind of thrown their name into the hat, but outside of UFC and Bellator, it's a fight for that 3 spot. So I think, combining all that talent, and they're going to do 30 shows a year. That's going to be you're going to see a lot of fighters coming out of this new organization straight to the UFC. That's what we had before with Legacy and RFA, and you're gonna continue to see that, and it's gonna be kind of like your minor leagues. If you win some big fights in that organization, you can expect a call from the UFC. I'm thinking.
Yeah, and Ed Soares, he seemed in his interview with Ariel One, he seemed like he didn't have any problem with sending them off to the UFC at all. So
yeah, I mean, he gets it. He totally gets it. He's been manager for so many, top level fighters for years, and he knows that their ultimate goal is to get there. So they're going to continue to do a nice job of, building fighters and still promoting huge fights. That's just going to be, that nice little step up in competition too, combining those two.
Yeah, and RFA is the one that you're heavily into, right?
Yeah. Of the two, I've been to, 3 or 4 RFA events. I've been to 1 Legacy event. But RFA comes to Minnesota more consistently. So I've been able to attend quite a few of those. And the organization I work for, we sent more of our fighters typically to RFA just because of the partnership with them.
Okay. And I think the 1 Legacy event I watched, it was all finishes, the whole card, top to bottom. So I really like their products. It was good stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And we kind of brushed over Chael Sonnen. That was my fault. I went right to Rizin.
That's all right.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome move. He wants to fight Tito Ortiz already. It looks like they're going to go back and forth. And, yeah, Chael Sonnen is going to dominate him in the trash talk department. That's not going to
Oh, my gosh. It's the best. He's already had some good one-liners, wants to fight at gangster weight. Everyone needs to be fearing him. He still has the biggest arms in the business, and he's clean now. He certainly is right back in there once again.
Yeah, and Tito Ortiz, I'm not sure if he can make a coherent sentence at this point in his career. So I think Chael Sonnen's going to walk circles around him in that department. But
and I think we're already seeing that with Conor and Alvarez too. Conor kind of whooped him up in the mental warfare.
Eddie tried. He tried to fire back, but man, he got no chance against Conor.
No.
So especially with the whole crowd behind him too.
Yeah,
that's gonna And
that's good stuff.
Chael can be a fighter promoter too. So
for sure.
Brilliant at that. He can promote other fights throughout Bellator. So even after he retires, he'll have a comfy position there. I feel.
Yeah, I agree for sure. In his first interview where he kind of made that announcement, it sounded like he was already promoting like that Czech Congo fight that very night. I don't remember who the interview was with, but he was already he name dropped that fight like 6 times right away. So he knows the fight business, and that's a huge signing, I'd say, for Bellator.
Yeah, good for them. That follows the Roy McDonald signing, so they're doing good things. I think, man, they're Bellator still. They got a couple of good fighters. What? Oh my God, I'm blanking. Koreshkov. No, not Shlemenko. Koreshkov. Andrei Koreshkov is an absolute beast. I would love
He's
to
the
see.
guy that beat Benson, right?
Yeah, so he's a tank. So I would love to see Rory McDonald fight him eventually. So that's going to be fun whenever that happens. Probably an immediate title shot if they gave one to Henderson.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to happen soon. Except Rory McDonald's. Have you seen his recent tweets?
No.
Oh, he's been going a little crazy. Like, yeah, we should fight no cage, no gloves,
Oh my gosh,
no rules. he's kind of going that route.
He's a different cat, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. All right, I think that covers news, right?
Yeah, I think so. Should we?
Jose Aldo.
Yeah, there we go. Last one.
Jose Aldo. He's kind of retiring, kind of threatening the UFC. You should cut my contract or whatever. Dana White said we're not cutting his contract. So White's made his stance known. But yeah, Aldo's obviously frustrated about the whole McGregor situation. There was that tweet that said, I'll wait. But then that happened to be a PR guy for Aldo, and Aldo fired him.
Yeah,
that's pretty funny. So yeah, Aldo's rightfully pissed, in my opinion. He's had 10 years of dominance, then he loses in 13 seconds, and then of course Conor hasn't defended his belt in 3 fights, or what's going to be 3 fights. So yeah, Aldo has the right to be frustrated. I don't think the posturing is going to work though. So I hope he doesn't retire. He's one of the best fighters out there, and he's coming off his best performance in his career, in my opinion, against Frankie.
Yeah, he looked very good in that fight against Frankie Edgar. Being a Conor McGregor fan myself, I certainly am on the opposite side. I think Aldo's being a little bit of a baby here. I think that he's just trying to stir the pot a little bit, and I think he forgets about that there were extended periods of time where he didn't defend his belt for various reasons as well, and there were interim champions during that time too, and so yeah, wasn't there an interim one?
I don't remember there ever being an interim featherweight. I think
maybe I'm thinking of bantamweight then.
Bantamweight. Mm-hmm.
Okay, but there could have been. There's definitely extended periods of time where he had layoffs, and he didn't defend his belt either. So
I don't know, just the unique situation because McGregor's not on a layoff; he's fighting.
Right, exactly.
He's fighting 3 times without defending his belt. So yeah, Aldo, he's just sitting there with the interim title, just waiting. And I think I forgot to mention this, but speaking of waiting, Yoel Romero had a really funny tweet after the press conference.
He did, yes, about not getting asked any questions.
Yeah. He tweeted a Cookie Monster gif where he's just sitting by a window, tapping his fingers, waiting for my question. Yeah, that's hilarious stuff. I think that fight's awesome too. Yoel Romero versus Chris Weidman, Battle of the Wrestlers. So plenty of good fights coming up.
Which I think that's a good transition into our new little segment we're going to have here, talking about DraftKings.
Yes.
So last week, Danny and I did our first little matchup against each other as far as taking each other on in DraftKings, and Danny whooped me up pretty good. We can go over a quick run through of our lineups. We faced off to the head-to-head. We both took Gilbert Burns, Luan Chagas, so it was really 3 fighters against each other. You had Vicente Luque, got Alfredo Pepe, both got you first-round finishes, and then Francisco Trinaldo had the 3rd-round stoppage against Felder, which was the nastiest gash ever.
Oh, my God.
And then my 3 fighters different than you. Had Hani Yahya, who got a win. Mike De La Torre, opposite side of Pepe. That one didn't go well for me. So that was kind of the kicker. Whoever won that fight was kind of going to go away with the win. I had Cyborg, which I thought would be, a nice pick. I was able to get her in my lineup. But final score 341 to 231.5. But big DraftKings news today for those that play it. As far as fantasy MMA goes, they added a 6th fighter, so you can have up to 6 fighters. You'll draft 6 fighters now instead of 5. Scoring changes. They added, like I was saying with wrestlers, they boosted the point values for getting takedowns. Knockdowns are even more now.
10 points now, I think.
Yep, 5 for a takedown, 5 for a reversal too. So that favors the wrestlers in that aspect, and it's going to change the way how to approach it now for sure.
Yeah, because that Ronnie Yahya fight, that probably would have got you a lot more points because he only threw like He only threw 19 strikes, I think, in the whole fight.
Exactly. So. And obviously at those higher point totals, and that's what a lot of people gave feedback on to DraftKings. And that's why I think we saw those changes. First round finish, it dropped like 10 points. But some of the other rounds got, I think, higher as far as like a third round finish went up 5 points or something, and decisions went up 5 points. So it'll be fun to see that this week, how it turns out. And we're going to take each other on again, and hopefully I can get my revenge.
I'm pretty confident in my lineup, and I hope my preview doesn't spoil any of my picks.
We can move on to UFC Portland then, if you wish.
Yep. And definitely. What fighters are you looking at this week?
As far as my top 5 fighters to look at, as far as, the fighter.
How about this? Wait, how about we start with your prospect to watch since he's on this card?
Sure. Why don't we do that? So
yes.
My prospect to watch is my top fighter to watch for this weekend as well, and that's Zach Otto. He's a late replacement. He's filling in for Bobby Green. He's taking on Joshua Berkman, as he's going by now, in the third to last fight of the night. It's actually going to take place at 170. Berkman used to fight at 170, cut down to lightweight pretty recently.
Fought Lombard at 170.
Yeah, exactly. And he actually did decent in that fight, which is crazy.
And he won the World Series of Fighting title at 172.
Yes. Yep. So he had a little career resurgence. And then I think probably his last fight was that Cote fight before he dropped down to 55.
And
so Zach Otto, I know of him. I think I've met him maybe once at an event. So Driller Promotions is the organization in Minnesota that I work for, and he fought under their banner back in 2013, I want to say. I don't have the exact date right now, but he's fought in RFA. He's supposed to fight in the Legacy co-main event next week, or within a week. His record, I think, is 13-3. 2 of his losses, one was to Volkman. That was his most recent. Jacob Volkman was his most recent loss. And then his first fight of his career, he lost to Mike Biggie Rhodes. So it was funny. Listen to his interview. He actually got the call, or his manager did, Jake Klipp. Jake Klipp is a guy who comes to our promotions. He helps us out. Pure Vita BJJ in Milwaukee. They train with Rick Glenn, so they were down in Hidalgo for Rick Glenn's fight against
Evan Dunham.
Evan Dunham, thank you. And is like either leading up to the fight or shortly after, Jake got the call and say, do you have anyone that, we want? I think Zach, is how it worked. We want him to step in and take this fight against Berkman. And so he was saying how he was getting his fight kit for cornering Rick Glenn that night. And then the next day he was going in again to get his own gear for the fight. So he said he's one of the few people they've ever called while they're at a fight to ask for a fight. So Otto, he has 13 wins, like I said. 12 of them are finishes, I believe. So he's got ability to knock guys out, but a lot of his wins have come by submission. His most recent win is over Craig Eckelberg. If you caught the season of Evolution of Punk, Craig was the guy who was sparring with CM Punk on a couple of the episodes.
Okay.
So he's fought in RFA too. So that was a big win for Zach, and the Barbarian. I'm calling it. I think he's going to beat Josh Berkman. I think it's going to be. He's really not that much of an underdog as far as the odds go. So it'll be an interesting fight. We'll see if he has the UFC jitters that typically go with making your debut. But he's definitely my prospect to watch, and a win over Josh Berkman would certainly turn some heads.
Yeah, I have Otto in this fight too. I watched a little bit of him. I like his southpaw stance. He loves that lead right hand. It was a knockout that I watched. I don't know which fight exactly, but he kept hitting that lead right hand over and over again. His hands are a little low. He's a little upright, but he favors that lead right hand a lot. Berkman is a little bit tentative at times, so he's not the pressure fighter that you don't want to fight in UFC debut. Like I always say, you don't want to fight pressure
Right.
guys. So Berkman's not that type of guy. So maybe Otto will be able to show his stuff in this one. And I'm just throwing his name out there, throwing his name in the bucket.
Yeah, well, and Berkman, like you said, he's not that pressure fighter, but he's definitely a grizzled vet. He was on one of the first seasons of The Ultimate Fighter. He's been around forever. So he's going to have that fight, that cage moxie that maybe Zach Otto won't have. But I think Otto's going to get the finish. He predicted himself that he'll get a third round knockout. We'll see if that can come together even before then.
And there's also the other late price on this card is Brandon Moreno, right?
Yes. Yep.
That's his name. And you've been watching Tough, and he was one of the contestants. So you can tell me about him.
Yeah. So Moreno was actually the 16 seed, and if you remember a couple weeks ago when I was kind of recapping the season, I told you how Pentejo is the RFA champion, the 1 seed. Moreno pushed him. I mean, it wasn't a finish, or it was a finish. I think it was a finish actually, because they've all been finishes so far. But Moreno pushed him, and he's a goer. He's got good cardio, and he's not afraid to stand in there and trade shots. So I think it's going to be a good fight for Smolka. Smolka is definitely heavily favored. He was supposed to fight Sergio Pettis, and Smolka's looked as good as anybody in that division lately. Yeah. So I still think Smolka will beat him, but I think Moreno is going to be tougher than a lot of people are expecting.
And as the point I just made about Berkman, Smolka is the opposite as far as pressure goes. So once he gets you down once, you're never getting back up because he'll just keep taking you down again and again and again. So
exactly.
Really sad that Pettis didn't get this fight, but another performance for Smolka on his way up to the top. So
right, and back to the DraftKings thing, that's exactly why Smolka is the top salary of the week. If you're gonna roster Smolka,
he might be on my lineup.
Yeah, if you're gonna roster Smolka, you're gonna have to pay up for him. So yeah, that's that one.
Yeah, he might be on my lineup. Let's put it that way.
That's probably a wise choice.
Yeah. There's a couple of other interesting fighters on this card. Let's see. Any fights stand out to you? Because there's a couple of you got to swim through a sea of some fights. So let's see. The main event is awesome. That's one of
the best fights of the year. I mean, it definitely has all the potential to, but like we were talking earlier, this fight just doesn't, or this fight card doesn't match up to what we've seen the last 2 weeks as far as FS1 cards go. But there are a lot of good fights. There's still 5 fights that we'll highlight here shortly that I really like, and there are some hidden gems as far as fighters to keep an eye on. Some names that I have, Otto and Moreno are the 2 to look at, just because they're stepping in on short notice. One fighter that's going unnoticed or under the radar is Henrique da Silva. He is the headliner for the FS2 prelims. I believe he's 11-0 with all knockouts or TKO finishes. He beat a fighter on the card, Jonathan Wilson, in his debut, knocked him out in like the first round. So I'm excited to see him back again. Another one on my list, Will Brooks, to see how he does in his second UFC fight. He looked good against Ross Pearson back in July. And then my last one is Cody East. We'll see how the looking for a fight alumnus does in Cody East. It's his second fight. He got beat by another fighter on this card, and Walt Harris did not look good in his UFC debut.
Kind of fighting the opposite fighter, Curtis Bladis.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing too. So looking at that fight, if we want to transition, that's my 4th favorite fight of the night. East and Blades. Bladis, he did not have the easy opponent as far as his UFC debut, Francis Ngannou. And you know what? In that fight, he actually did decently. I mean, he stayed in it and he took a beating, and the fight stopped because of a doctor's stoppage. He had a pretty nasty cut, but he wanted to keep fighting. So I liked what I saw from him a lot more than I saw from Cody East in his debut.
And Bladis has a ton of wrestling credentials, so it's going to be interesting to see how East deals with that. East has a ton of knockout power, but yeah, Walt Harris put him down. That surprised me. I had East in that fight.
Yeah.
But it was nice to see East get knocked out because he's not the greatest guy in the world. So
yeah, he has a little bit of a past.
Man, his criminal record's like this long. It's crazy.
And I think his brother is fighting in the main event of when Legacy comes back to Minnesota again in October. I think it's October 7th. He's fighting Brian Heaton, I think is his name. He's basically Minnesota's heavyweight champion. So yeah, Cody East has a brother in Legacy, and he's fighting in the main event coming up here.
All right. So what are your other favorite fights going on?
Yeah. So number 5, Smolka Moreno. You know, it's probably going to be a beatdown, but I do want to see if Moreno can push Smolka and just to see how that fight turns out to be. I'm excited to see how Moreno looks. Like we've said, it could be a quick one in favor of Smolka, but that's number 5. 4 is the East Blades fight. Number 3 is the co-main event, Will Brooks and Cowboy Oliveira. I think that's going to be a real fun fight. I think it's going to be a lot of wrestling, a lot of grappling, a lot of clinch work.
That's interesting.
And Oliveira has pretty good jiu-jitsu, and so it'll be interesting to see how if Brooks wants to take it to the ground or if he's going to try to duke it out on the feet. Number 2, Hakron Diaz and Andre Touchy-Feely. I think that's an awesome fight in the featherweight division. It's my favorite division in the UFC. And Diaz I think he only has 4 losses to his record. He's coming off that pretty bad beatdown to Cub Swanson, but he's still ranked, and it's a big opportunity for Feely. Who did he step in for?
Brian Ortega.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, so that would have been an awesome fight. But I think this one's gonna be good too. Feely's gonna be hungry. He just got knocked out pretty wickedly by Yair Rodriguez. So
jumping switch kick.
So that one gets my number 2 slot, and the number 1 is the obvious one, the main event, Lineker and Dodson. The way I see that fight going, it can be a slugfest like we saw in Lineker and Francisco Rivera, or both guys have wicked power and could have the potential to knock each other out. I don't think either of them has ever been finished by knockout. So it would be a first, but because we don't call John Lineker hands of stone for no reason, and Dodson has incredible speed and power behind that speed. So this is one of my favorite fights, not only on this card, but really of the whole of the year. So I'm really looking forward to that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a couple of great fights you highlighted. Listen to the Heavy Hands podcast today, which is an awesome technical podcast with Connor Rebush and Patrick Wyman. They broke down the Andre Feely and Hakron Diaz fight very interestingly, because they said Diaz is one of the more conservative fighters on the roster, while Feely is just aggressive as ever. And if you combine them, you get Max Holloway, which is, in their opinion, the perfect featherweight. So,
perfect.
Yeah. And I, in my opinion, that fight, I think Diaz will be patient, let Feely do his thing, and eventually grind out a decision. I think that's going to happen to that one. Brooks versus Oliveira's awesome fight too. Oliveira's huge. He's a big welterweight when he fought up there, and now he's dropping down to lightweight for this fight. So he loves to use his size and pressure, and of course that's Will Brooks' game too. He's patient, and when he decides to wrestle, it's beautiful. That takedown he hit on Ross Pearson in the second round, just picture perfect double leg. But then again, Ross Pearson came on hard in the third and really dominated Will Brooks in that round. So we'll see how his patience works against a guy like Oliveira. I'm really looking forward to that one, because Brooks has potential to be one of the best lightweights in the UFC. I think already he's at like number 9. So
yeah,
of course the main event, John Dodson, he can lull you to sleep for like 3 rounds and then knock you out in the third. That's how he fights. While Lineker just like gets on you like when you say go, he's already on you like glue, swinging haymakers. So it's really interesting to see how Dodson's going to deal with that, and if his speed will be able to get away from John Lineker, because we saw how Rob Font, he tried to get away from John Lineker, and Lineker was just really – he was okay with just walking him down and hit him with a couple body shots.
He kind of did that with Michael McDonald, too, in his last fight, so real similar.
Yes, this fight, it's going to end in a knockout at some point. 5-round main event. Oh, 5 rounds of that. That's going to be awesome, but yeah.
I finally watched just the last couple of days the Rodriguez-Caceres fight. I was finally able to get around to see that one. And this one kind of has, some similarities to it as far as pace goes. I think they both can go for a long time. Both these guys used to be flyweights. That was kind of the dream fight at flyweight. This is probably the better division for both of them as far as cardio and I guess we never really saw that with Dodson as far as cardio goes, but he couldn't beat DJ. So it's fun that we're going to get this at 135. Lineker's probably going to be the bigger looking guy, and he struggles to even make 35 sometimes. So it should be fun. What are your thoughts on the Marquardt and McCrory fight?
Good thing you brought that. I was about to bring that up. Tanzer McCrory, I'm a little biased. Tanzer McCrory is from Ithaca, New York. He was raised here, and that's where I'm living right now. So got a little bias. He went to the gym, or he trained at the gym. He got a start at the gym that I work at. So that's cool. I think he's an awesome fighter. Barn Cat.
He's got the best
nickname ever.
Yeah.
And Nate Marquardt's kind of on the tail end of his career. He just got knocked out by Thiago Santos. Before that, he kind of had like that fight that made his career go on a couple fights too long, where he knocked out CB Dalloway, where he's like, oh, I can still do this. Where he's like, no, don't, Nate, you can retire now. But he's still trying. And McCrory he's awesome. I know he lost his last fight to Krzysztof Jotko, which is a little disappointing in 1 minute. Yeah,
that was a nasty knockout too.
Right on the forehead, and McCrory just went out. But McCrory's got sick jiu-jitsu. He submitted Josh Salmon from his back in the 3rd round of his UFC comeback
fight. Yep.
Yeah. And then in Bellator, he was just crushing it. Beat 2 guys in a minute each. So yeah, he's really fun to watch. He moved out to Extreme Couture for this fight.
Okay.
He's no longer. He was in Binghamton training for most of his fights, and don't know what's going on in Binghamton. That's an hour south of me. I don't know if any gym is there really that's high level. So he's getting some high level training now, and I think Marquardt's on the tail end. So unless he pulls out something like he did against Dalloway, McCrory should win this one. It's an awesome Fight Pass headliner.
Yeah, I agree. It's getting a lot of flack really as far as comparing to other ones, but I think it's a very underrated fight. And if I had to put a 6th fight for my fights to look for, that would have been it. So certainly definitely up there for me as far as ones I'm looking forward to.
And another fight I'm looking forward to is Shamil Abdurakhimov versus Walt Harris. That's an awesome heavyweight battle. Abdurakhimov, I think it was his UFC debut, was against Anthony Hamilton, and he just looked awesome. He boxed him up for 3 rounds, and he was just constantly pressuring Hamilton and didn't give Hamilton any time to breathe. Actually, Abdurakhimov's debut was a knockout against Timothy Johnson. He got knocked out in that fight, so then he came back and dominated Anthony Hamilton over 3 rounds. And so he looked awesome in that one. And Walt Harris, who struggled in his UFC career,
0-4 before the East fight.
Obviously had that bounce back against Cody East. So he's got put you to sleep power. He's got one of the biggest frames in the heavyweight division. He's huge.
He's kind of built like Phil Davis, except a heavyweight.
Bigger, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm really looking forward to that fight too.
Yeah, Shamil Abdurakhimov has awesome technique, and then Walt Harris obviously has awesome power. So I'd like to see how that fight goes. I'm picking up Abdurakhimov in that one. I don't know who you have, but I'm going with.
I think that was my pick too. I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure.
He's a heavyweight prospect to watch, Abdurakhimov, I think. After that performance against Anthony Hamilton, I think, he's one to watch, definitely.
Very cool.
Let's see. Kelly Fatsos, she was awesome to watch in her UFC debut. I think you were at that fight. She just a brawler.
Against Stanshu, or who did she fight?
But Lauren Murphy.
No, that was Chikagian fought Murphy.
Oh wait, hold on. Let's get this figured out. I think she fought Lauren Murphy before Murphy.
She did. Chikagian. Yeah, she lost to Lauren Murphy back in February.
Yeah, but she looked awesome in that fight. So you weren't there. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Now,
So
this Ketlin Vieira that she's fighting, is she the sister of the Vieira who won the Ultimate Fighter Latin America? Or do you have any?
Reginaldo,
Yeah,
I can check, but I do
it's
not
spelled the
know.
same, but I have no clue.
But I think she has an awesome record, 6-0, couple of submissions.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, 3 first-round finishes, and Fat Schultz just brings it. So that's a good way to start the fight, start the fight night, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, another fight I'm looking at is and here we go. Here's the part where I'm like, okay, what else is left? Nakamura, he was fun to watch. Keita Nakamura.
I did see him. He beat Kyle Noak, and he looked really good in that fight.
Yep, he beat Kyle Noak. I think he got knocked down in that fight, or did he knock down Noak? One of those things happened, and then he ended up getting a last second
choke. He choked
him
him out in the third, yeah. Second round, it was a buzzer beater. Yep.
And Zaleski Dos Santos has looked good in his UFC career too. He beat Omari Akhmedov in his last fight, unless I'm missing one.
No, yep, that's a good win. He lost to Dalby in his first fight, split decision.
And that was close too. So, yeah, Nakamura, he fought Tom Breeze, and he looked good in that fight. And it's tough to look good against Tom Breeze. So it kind of gave Breeze a lot of trouble. And then he obviously had that awesome fight against Kyle Noak. So he's another good prospect to watch. I think his grappling is great, and it's going to be cool to see against a Brazilian like Zaleski Dos Santos, who uses his size and his pressure to beat guys. So that's another interesting one. Starts the FS2 prelims. Not much else to say about this card.
Yeah, the only other one that I think is the last fight we didn't really hit on is Jonathan Wilson and Ian Cutelaba. Cutelaba looked okay against Mirsha Serkinov. He was kind of pressuring him. He rattled him a couple times, I think, in that first round before getting ultimately knocked out. And then Jonathan Wilson, like I said, he got knocked out by Henrique da Silva in his last fight, but he had a nice little knockout in his UFC debut to move to 7-0 at the time. So I'm looking forward to that fight too. I think there's a lot of fights that we're going to see finishes. There's a lot of fights that have just some killers, and in that sense, we might not have the best fights, but I think we're going to see some good finishes this weekend.
Mm-hmm. That seems like a Dotson kind of fight. Like, it's not the greatest fight, but then it's an awesome finish. So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so he's headline the card, and that might be the trend for the card. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm looking forward to it though. It's another weekend of fights, and can't complain. And we got a nice little stretch here. It's a good precursor to the next week when we get another pay-per-view.
Yep, and thank God for a 4-fight main card in FS1, because man, that pacing is terrible.
Yeah, and the times are a little different this weekend. I don't know what the reasoning behind that. I don't know if because of college football, if that played into it, or the postseason race here for baseball. But we're starting at 7:15 Eastern time for you, 6:15 for me. The prelims are but really like an hour later, and then the main card starting at 11 p.m. Eastern for you and 10 Central time. So just a little bit different, but like you said, thankfully it's a 4-fight main card, and we don't have to go into the late hours. But if you got a beast like Cyborg, you draw a good rating still, like we saw last week.
Yeah, what was that one that peaked at like 1.3 million? So yeah, those FS1 cards are doing good numbers. I think the best numbers I've seen recently was Holm versus Shevchenko, and that got like 4 million viewers. So,
and that was a Fox card too. But that kind of on that same note, I saw Jeremy Botter tweeted out this week that he's already hearing talks, and his sources are saying that the UFC, when they restructure their broadcasting deal, he thinks that they are going to be spread out through all sports, through all networks, just like the NFL, you get CBS, NBC, ESPN. He's hearing that's kind of the rumbling right now. And I think that'd be huge for the UFC. Cool. It'd be really sweet if, you can one week watch fights on NBC, next week you're watching it back on Fox. And then even if ESPN can get involved, ESPN has to be thrown in their hat. They've increased their fight coverage substantially.
They cover glory now.
Exactly. So you got to believe that the ESPN is going to be putting some big numbers towards the UFC. 2018, I think, is when the Fox deal expires. But I don't know. Botter's already hearing stuff that maybe they're going to, restructure it now, and then hopefully we can see that soon. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that might be the TV deal that gets the UFC a lot of money that can then trickle down to the fighters, because that's where the money comes from for the other sports. It's those massive TV deals, and that's how guys get like $20 million contracts, and you don't see that in UFC yet. So hopefully
I think by spreading it out too, it's gonna also attract your casual fans even more, because the people are flipping through channels and they come upon UFC on whatever channel, and just the more exposure it has to more networks, I think the better that's going to be for them.
Yeah, and if ESPN's showing live kickboxing on ESPN2,
right?
I mean, yeah, this is a no-brainer.
And they're it's the approach that I think Premier Boxing Championships has done. I don't watch that, but I know like they'll be on NBC one weekend, and Fox has them too, and ESPN even. So that'd be cool. It's something to keep an eye on in the coming maybe months, but for sure coming years.
And we'll see how many viewers this card gets. Not the best card. Starts later, so we'll see how that does. And I think
it might be a little bit of a drop off from last week.
Right. Anything else to add? Lastly,
no. That's it. And go Connor.
It's a couple months from now, so
yeah, we're a little excited here.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's going to be a good fight target this weekend. See you next week, Jake. And I'll be on Sunday morning, 7:00 this time. Cut an hour off my show, so I'll be a little more awake next week.
Sleeping in.
Yep, sleeping in, waking up at 4 instead of 3. Let's do this.
See you later.
Woo. Yep. See you later. Thank you all for listening. That was Midweek Sparring. We do that every Thursday. Times vary. Last week it was at 6. This time was at 8:30. So thank you for listening. Tune in on Sunday, vicradio.org. This was the Shadowboxing podcast, Midweek Sparring.